Then later regret. Then down payment already, then like bye bye, no relationship.
That one I cannot comment.
Hi, I'm Shanice.
Hi, I'm Brenda.
Hi, I'm Marianne.
Hi, I'm Leah, and this is
ZULA
ChickChats. So before we start this episode, I'd just like to thank The Closet Lover for sponsoring our wardrobe today.
Yay!
So in today's episode of Adulting with Zula, we'll be talking about buying our first home, and today we have Brenda, the Senior Marketing Director of ERA, to share her expertise on this situation.
So when newlyweds look at buying their first home, they usually decide between a BTO, resale or an EC. Maybe you can help us break it down in simpler terms.
A BTO is actually built to order, brand new flats buy directly from HDB. Well, resale is actually from the secondary market. EC is actually condominiums heavily subsidized by HDB.
Okay, so let's just look at BTO versus a resale flat because they're both HDBs. And we also want to look at what are the advantages and disadvantages between the two.
There's no advantages or non-advantages. I think it's more towards which one suits you more. Some people, they like brand new stuff, so they will rather go for BTO. Well, some people, they might not be able to wait, or they don't like non-mature estate.
Very small.
Yeah, so yeah, they probably go for resale.
Okay, so Marianne, right, she just bought her BTO. Well, I'm actually choosing for a resale flat next year. So maybe you can share.
So at that point of time, about 2 years plus back, BTO seems like the safer choice because it's like not so expensive. Whereas resale in premium locations are like 500, 600, 700 even. Coming out from just graduating, you don't really have the money, so we decided, we just wait 3 years later. Anyway, we're not getting married now.
For my case, actually I tried BTO as well. And then my boyfriend and I, we got the Bidadari BTO. When we chose to bid for it, right, it was like 400 something thousand for a 4-room. And then when we got the sales brochure, it was like 533,000. I just don't feel like it's worth the amount of money because they are classifying it under like Toa Payoh mature estate, so they bump up the price. Now you know all of my friends BTO, then you go to their flats, right? It's like damn tiny. I just cannot.
In my perception, right, I think for renovation for BTO is a lot cheaper because you can just use the existing HDB tiles that you opt for. But for resale flat, you have to do hacking. So hacking itself is a big part of the reno cost.
Yeah, so my boyfriend and I, we are just hoping we find a resale flat that is already like sort of nice, so you don't have to do a lot of
actually a lot of people like to buy those just
relatively new.
Yeah, relatively new one because most of the units there are very nicely renovated.
So actually one of the reasons why I didn't choose a BTO, right, is because it's not my ideal location. So I would rather a resale where I can actually choose the location and I can already see like who my neighbours are, what the environment is like.
Marianne, where is your BTO at?
Sengkang lor. So it's like somewhere that Shanice will never ever buy.
But why do you choose there?
Because both our parents live around the vicinity.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like,
That
you
makes
know,
sense.
in the future when we do want to have children, it makes sense because parents-in-law can take care, right?
There are a lot of people actually prefer BTO because of all these non-matured estate, because if you're setting up a new family, right, you want your kids to mix around a lot of neighbors, grow up with this kind of community.
It depends on what your priority is end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most commonly asked questions among couples, right, is that which size should they get? 2, 3, 4, 5 bedroom?
You should, based on your income and affordability too.
Correct.
I think 4 room is like the average. Like majority of the newlywed couples will just go for 4 room because like maybe 5 room are like too big.
Yeah, to them it's like, it's only 2 of us. Why we do we need such a big
And most
house?
one more kid.
Yeah, but like for my sister, right, before she ROM, she chosen the 4-room. Then very soon, before 5-year MOP met, already got 2 kids with a dog and a helper. And she very soon she think, she regretted the house is too small.
Maybe we need to think of family planning in the next like 5 years or so.
Yeah. So what is the income ceiling for each type of housing then?
Yeah, you're buying BTO or resale, your income ceiling is less than 12,000. But if you are below 14,000, then you're eligible to buy an EC.
So then mentioning the income ceiling for buying the flat itself, right? Is there any income ceiling for grants you can get to buy each type of housing?
For BTO, right, actually your income ceiling not more than 8,500, then you are entitled for special housing grant.
Okay.
Yeah, which is up to 40,000. And there's also another grant, we call it additional housing grant, which cater for lower income, combined monthly income not more than 5,000.
Do you get both the grants for
I
this one?
did. So they don't calculate 3 years later when you get the keys, right? What is your financial status then? Yeah, they only calculate when you apply.
That's why for those, like one of them is working, one of them is in uni, when they buy the BTO, right, wow, they get almost maximum.
Sell cheat code.
Yeah.
But would you recommend like couples to do that if they have a chance? Because I think a lot of people rush into it.
Don't let that thing decide whether you're going to get married or not. So for resale flat, right, you can also get housing grant from the government, but the income ceiling for resale is higher, it's 12,000.
Okay.
So you can get the enhanced family grant, which is about 30,000 to 40,000.
High.
It depends on the size that you're looking at. There are advanced housing grant that I mentioned just now to cap the lower income. And there's another thing called proximity grant, where you stay within 4-kilometer radius from your parents.
So now we talk about all the fundamental things. Let's talk about how much a couple should actually save up in order to buy their first home.
I think generally let's base it on my unit price. So my unit price is around 320 something lah. In this case, we have to pay down payment of 5% because it's the deferred payment scheme. So 16,000, it's deductible from CPF. I already have 60k grant. Even 3 years later when I get my house, right, the 5% down payment is also covered by the 60k grant. I guess if you want a rough estimation, you need to have 15 to 20k in your CPF because still got stamp duty, miscellaneous fees lah essentially.
In hers as an example that she can entitle for 60,000 grant, if she's buying a resale flat, she can get probably additional 20,000 for staying nearby the parents. The down payment is not more than 1,000, and when you exercise the option, it's not more than 4,000.
Okay, on that note, right, is a HDB loan better or like a bank loan better?
If you are taking a bank loan, you can get up to 75% of the property price, but the interest rate is fluctuate for bank loan. Well, not everybody eligible for HDB loan, but of course, if you are eligible for HDB loan, you can still get the 90%. Flats 2.6 interest rate.
So just now, Marion, you mentioned some of the fees, right? Maybe Brenda, you can share with us like what are these fees and what exactly do they like constitute of?
Okay, basically, besides the down payment, the booking fee, so you still have conveyancing fees, means legal fees.
Okay.
For HDB loan is less than 1,000. If you are taking a bank loan, it can be up to 2,500. Stamp duty, layman term means tax is about 3% the purchase price.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to say the possibility of selling your flat in the future. Can you really earn better profits from a BTO versus a resale flat when you sell it?
The least matter because if it is more than 40 years old flat, definitely the price is lower. But it depends. If you bought this resale is like 20 years ago, where prices are very, very low. It could be now because this area has got more MRT station. Resale value for this particular old flat is also quite good. But generally speaking, BTO should have a better capital gain compared to resale.
Okay. Talking about resale, right? So what are some other considerations you take into account when it comes to it? So for example, I heard, right, that if you stay higher floor, easier to sell. That kind of thing.
Technically, yes.
Is it?
Yes, usually 80% of the people like high floor.
This is what someone mentioned to me, like, should you reno your flat just to be able to sell it at a higher price?
Renovation is very individual. Valuation doesn't vary much. It's only like 5-10%.
So you spend like maybe 20,000 for reno, but you only get like
A few thousand more.
lower than that.
It will get faster to sell if your house is well kept and renovated. I think better to have fresh coat of paint, the minor touch up here and there. I think that one is important.
The young people especially, they like to hack the bedrooms. You know, like the master bedroom to the common bedroom. I don't know if this affects resale value, but common sense tells me yes.
I think it depends. And like, say if like the person that is potentially buying, right, likes a big bedroom, then they're like, yeah,
Then you got to find this particular buyer that is same like you.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, right, now it's like a lot of people are looking for the very modern aesthetic. They say knock down everything, right? Then everything is very open. Honestly, like if I'm someone who coming to buy, right, I confirm will look like wow, just buy already. I'll be very excited to buy something like that.
Because HDB usually is you must meet the family nuclear. So people who buy usually their family, they might have kids. So it's better to have more bedrooms.
Do your considerations change when, let's say, you're buying a house as a potential investment versus buying a house to stay for like the rest of your life?
Of course, especially HDB is meant to be a home instead of an investment. But of course, when we put down our hard-earned money to buy a property, we hope that property also some sort of investment that you can get back. That's why not advisable to buy too old.
So last question is just advice you would give to young couples who are looking to buy their new home.
So I think importantly is must base on both income, so don't overstretch yourself, and also secondly, you know, some location that you like it so much but it is not very convenient for you. I think this is a very important criteria.
I think money is really very important because it really helps you to determine where you want to stay, what kind of house you want to live in, plan properly your finances, and I think just do more research on like the location, the prices, and what we can actually afford. Even 3 years down the road, can we afford this loan and the monthly repayment and all that stuff?
Because everyone looks at it on a very different like set of guidelines. So it's whether you prioritize location more, price more, and say if you maybe you don't care about how your house looks, then maybe renovation doesn't really matter to you, so you can save costs.
Coming to this, I think we have much knowledge about like the whole BTO resale kind of system, right? Honestly, right, having this conversation, it's not really that hard to go and do some research about it or like find out all these details yourself because everything is there. It's just that it looks like a lot of information, right, when you see on the sites. But hopefully this video has helped everybody like take away something from this video.
Okay, so today we talked about buying your first home, and I think the gist of it is just to make sure you don't overstretch yourself on financials, and also to see which one matters to you more, location, price, etc.
So if you guys have any stories to share about this, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and also let us know what else to talk about in this adulting segment.
And don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Bye!